film for the receivers, and it's just connected pieces, just a different piece. So I'm the O-line coach, so I focus a lot on the box, the O-line, tight ends, running back, because I can see that in the vision. But then I go back and watch the outsides. But also, I can tell what's going on based on the result of the play. So a lot of that is all. And then it might be segments when we're doing half line, or we're doing a certain part of practice where I get to watch something else. So it's very similar to any other position that does it. I'm just more focused on that position.
But during the course of a practice, if a running back doesn't hit the hole that he's supposed to have.
I knew that before I was coordinator.
Well, of course, I knew it, but they're all your players now. I mean, I know that y'all had a connection with them before anyway, but
I still have a personal responsibility to the guys that I coach. Just like most coordinators, there are not many walk-around coordinators. Usually coordinators does have a responsibility of a position, so that is the responsibility that helps the entire offense, but you also have the overall big picture of the organization and how we want to run things and how we can do things in practice to get everybody better, or highlight something that individual group might need more. So hey, let's get some more reps of this so we can fix this group, or things like that. I think that's kind of what it more encompasses.
How beneficial is staff continuity, familiarity with one another, with operating in that manner, with all of you kind of understanding what each person's looking for?
Continuity is always good if you're with a group of guys that wants to push each other even more, because continuity can build comfort. So you still want to maximize each other and push each other. So having the continuity is good because you're hearing the consistent voice, consistent coaching, consistent messaging. But you also want to be where you kind of stress each other a little bit to keep growing and keep getting better. I think Coach Red does a good job of that.
What's Caden brought to your group?
What I like about Caden is his serious attitude. He's been through it. He comes from a good program, so he knows what he wants. He knows what it looks like. And he also is open. He wants to learn more. He wants to be pushed more. So it's kind of that coach me, coach mentality where he's up in my office more than I can, sometimes I see him in there, I'm like, you might as well get a sleeping bag, because he wants to be up there all the time. He wants to soak up knowledge. He wants to grab me after practice. He understands that grown man mentality of getting it all while you can.
As a new guy in Caden, contending for the center spot, how important is the spring for him building that chemistry with the guys, the quarterbacks, with all of that on the field?
Yeah, they do a lot of that off and on the field. The spring, and he wants. But the big thing about spring is more development than it is more evaluation before we go into a depth chart. That's for more hype and things like that. But we just try to get the guys that we have right now that are repping. They're all rep evenly. The ones and the twos and threes, everybody getting equal reps. So it's more of developing what we have. It's maximizing what it could be. Not much more depth chart or competing, but just more, let's get him the best he can be. That kind of comes later.
How much more of a luxury with having more experience and also some new pieces, Caden, Bless, for example, is it finding your best five than maybe you've had to do the last two?
But just more of a better standard of how we want our room to operate, because we have guys that have been there with me to know what it needs to look like and what I expect. So I would say guys are just more comfortable because they're not having to rotate in too many other positions, but we still cross-train. So that's always going to be a part of it. So I think it's just having more guys. We have more guys than we ever had in a spring practice where we can do ones, twos, threes, and possibly another set. I think more than that, that probably helps them probably get a little bit more break, to be honest with you. Probably taking too many reps.
How big is that, man, to have most of, if not all of your guys able to practice in the spring? Just for competition purposes, for depth chart purposes, all of it.
All of it. You don't want to miss a rep on opportunity. You have limited opportunities to get better at this game. Injury halts that a lot, and you got to catch up. So having everybody available to get better and to work, it just helps everybody else get better, because like we talk about competition, you still got a little bit in you when you see somebody else pushing a little bit further. So you see that out the corner of your eye, so, well, let me do a little bit more too. So there's still a competition in it, but there's also, we just got to maximize and get better. Whatever we are deficient in, we need to really focus on that and get after it.
Having two guys that are experienced at center, that's got to be good going into a season.
Oh, yeah.
Where last year you had some disrupted practices because of injuries at center.
Yeah, we were. There are not many teams in the country that can lose 1 and 2, and at one point we lost 1 and 2. We lost both guys that have started a bunch of games. They're playing center. They both were down. Or battling through injuries or battling through small nagging deals. So what that did was that maximized me as a coach. So now that was a learning experience for me, where I had guys that could snap it, but I didn't maximize the reps of other guys that could, so you wouldn't have those disastrous practice. So a lot of that's on me. So what I had to do is develop more guys that can snap the football, recruit to that, and also make sure we are never in that situation again.
With these two, will you keep them at center, or you mentioned cross training?
Primarily this spring they'll be working at center.
Okay. Then you get to the fall, then you start to,
Possibly more. Now I'm not saying that they won't rep at other positions because there's different parts of practice where in team it might say all center. But in individual, we might say, you can rep guards, you're going to work these certain techniques at guard, you're going to work these techniques at tackle. So there is some cross-training element to it, or I might quiz them and say, what does the guard have here? There's still some of that, but actual rep taking, they're mostly going to take the center reps.
How much does your new role change kind of your responsibilities out of practice, or is most of those change coming off the field in the meeting rooms, film, stuff like that?
Say that one more time.
How much does your new role change kind of your in-practice responsibilities, or is it more off-field?
Not much in practice because I'm still responsible for the group that I coach, like all coordinators. I just think more of the approach of how we want to attack in the planning of practice. I'm a lot more involved in that, like saying, okay, where do we want to go? What do we want to do? What do we want to highlight? What do we want to change? Being more vocal and having a little bit more authority in those decisions.
going back to the centers.
Yep.
Both of them have had playing time and want playing time. How do you balance that?
Meaning how the rep count or
Well,
who plays?
Yeah, who plays?
Yeah, I mean that's up to them. That'll be on what they put on film. But the good thing about it is I got a little while to worry about that.
Yeah.
Right now is get better.
Yeah.
Whether it's recognizing the fronts, continuity, snap consistency, all of those things. Get better at that. We'll rotate. There won't be a 1 and 2 and 3. Like I might say, hey, you go with the ones today. You go with the 2s today. That didn't really not on my mind right now. Is make sure you use these 15 practices to be the best center you can be, and then we'll start fall evaluation when we start talking about depth chart.
One last question about those two guys.
Mm-hmm.
They seem totally different body styles to me and skill sets. I mean, Lyles seems very big, thick, like you'd expect, whereas Maurice seems quicker. He's a
Lighter guy.
A lighter guy. What does that mean in football?
Everybody has a different skill or trait just that they're born with that some of us don't have. Caden is a thicker kid, probably like to eat a little bit more, So, and Maurice is athletic, he can move, he can run, he's smart, quick as a cat. So there has to be a balance where, one has to probably work on more athleticism and one has to work on more power and getting more weight on them. So you still have that duality of them both having to work in different pieces. But that's like we talk about coordinating and putting guys together. That's the great thing about this offense Coach Novell does, and what we try to do is we try to put people in the best possible position that they can do it. So whoever it is, we're going to make sure we're doing what they can do.
Biggest spring is this I know it's a big spring for everybody.